Hello and welcome. My name is Dehelov, and today I wanted to talk about Ogdoadic ratios. There are a lot of cards in this archetype, but they're not all of equal value. So to start, we have the most important cards, Nunu and Naya. These are our searchers by virtue of dumping. Nunu is our light and will dump dark, and Naya is our dark and will dump lights. And this setup gives us access to the most important reptiles, although there are some regrettably you cannot access. Something that stops Vanguard of the Underground Emperor from being more useful to the deck is that it cannot be dumped with one of these two options. As for ratios for them, I run 2 of each. In the past I had run 3 because it seems to be the most consistent in concept. In practice, it just leads to drawing too many of them. Opening 2 in an opening hand isn't actually as bad as it may seem, especially if it is Naya and you don't have a way to res it that turn, but in general, it is better to just try to set up the combo with just 1 of each, or just 1, as each is a single card starter for your full rank 8 combo. Next up are Zoha and Flogos. These are monsters that are meant to combo with the level 8 boss monsters Amnesia and Aaron, which we will go over in a bit. Their main purpose is to remove big bricky level 8s from our hand and to make it more flexible. They also give you access to a really nice King of the Fair Limbs combo. If you run Nunu and you use its effect to send Zoha to the graveyard, you can then special summon Nunu with its effect, add Zoha to your hand with Zoha's effect, and now you have the level 4s needed for the rank 4. But regardless of which one you go for, they both serve to hand fix and to clean up those big pesky level 8s and get them to the graveyard where they want to be. But as for these cards, you really only need one of them. I run Zoha because I like his effect more, but honestly, Flogos' attribute being light is more useful, as we have very few light targets in the deck to dump, whereas there are many targets for Nunu to dump after we do our initial dump. Next up, we have Alert and Curse. These are our level 8s that are the main contributors to the level 8 and rank 8 combo. Curse brings back a monster, and Alert will refill your graveyard with the cards you banish, since your Nunu and Naya will eventually become banished just due to the archetype's interactions. You want 1 of each because you never want to see them in your opening hand, as they are incredibly bricky and have no inherent way of getting out of your hand. They are also very accessible through Nunu and Naya, being the correct attributes, so they are easy to get to. We have Aaron, King of the Ogdoadics, and Amnesia, Queen, and these cards are interesting. They are not bad cards, but I don't run any of them, and the reason is they don't progress the game state on their own. They are both interesting passive boss monsters. Aaron will hand rip the opponent if they add a card to their hand, and Amnesia will let you send a card from your opponent's field to the graveyard if a monster is sent from their field or deck to the graveyard. If you were to play them, I would recommend them at 1 each, or one of the one that you think is a higher value depending on what you play in your deck. Aaron is useful because oftentimes the opponent will search on their turn and he will let you hand rip, and it can do something impactful. I find it is too random and usually too low impact to rip just 1 random card, but it is still valuable, especially if paired with something like Darkest Diabolus, Lord of the Lair, or Cyframe Lord Omega, because now you're ripping 2 cards out of their hand, putting them at 4 cards to start their turn. Their costs are also quite hefty. If you do not manage to summon them through other means like Ogdoadic Water Lily or through use of Ogdoadic Serpent Strike, now you are summoning them by tributing 2 monsters, and that is just frankly too much for what they do. Again, these are not bad cards, but if you are to play them, play 1 of each or 1 of just the one you like. The last monster to cover is Octopus, and he is very interesting. Again, I do not run him, but it is not because he is a bad card. Octopus is a giant threat. He has 3100 attack points, can summon himself from the graveyard for 3 tributes, and, as a quick effect, once while he's face up on the field, can send all monsters not summoned from the graveyard to the graveyard. The reason I don't run him is because I play Ogdoadic Dino, and that deck has access to Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, a giant main deck threat. So, where is Octopus best? He's best as a 1-of in a deck that doesn't have a main deck threat. Ogdoadic lists focus on the extra deck, so they can be fragile if they're locked out of the extra deck, or have too few resources to access their usual combos. This means Octopus becomes a searchable boss monster that is very powerful on the board and can actually work as a quick play Regeki. Next are the spells, the first and best of which is Ogdoadic Water Lily. This card is a Foolish Burial, and if you meet its requirements, a monster born for a reptile. And those are clearly some ridiculous effects that make for a really good searchable spell card. This is the archetype's best card by a country mile, and it really shows. Although, contrarily, I only run 1 of this as well. You don't want to open it that much, you want to search it and then use it off of your Naya. And then after that, it is not that useful, as your graveyard only needs to be set up once to be set up for the whole duel. Next up is our most recent piece of support, Ogdoadic Serpent Strike. This card is really good. It does what Zoha and Flogos do in fixing our hand, and it resurrects our monsters the way we like to. The only caveat is it sends to graveyard as cost, so it cannot send Nunu or Naya when they've been rezzed, like when Nunu rezzes itself or when Naya is summoned by Curse's effect. Despite its strength, just like Ogdoadic Water Lily, we only need to play one. Naya is an amazing searcher, and this isn't necessarily a starter card the way our other cards are, so seeing one on the search is exactly what we want. If we do happen to have it, it also gives us a secondary search, because when you run just one Ogdoadic Water Lily, it leaves you blank after that first round, and the duels often go long with this grindy deck. For the last 3 cards, we're going to do a speed round, because none of them are good, and we don't play any of them. Ratio 0. So, to start, Ogdoadic Origin, a gimmicky field spell that focuses on having only reptile monsters and tries to mill the opponent, but milling is not good because you're just filling their graveyard. Ogdoadic Hollow, a card that values other monsters over your own, trading reptiles to summon monsters from the opponent's graveyard for just the turn. Also, when it leaves the field, it pops all your non-reptiles. Also trap card. And lastly, Ogdoadic Calling. Summons 2 tokens. If you have 8 unique names, summons 2 reptiles from grave. Too specific, we don't run that many reptiles, there aren't that many good ones, too many bricks. Also, a trap card. The last card that isn't auto-included in any reptile deck, this one included, is Snake Rain. And that is because for the cost of a discard, you can send 4 from deck to grave. They don't even have to be different, it's a very flexible card. Although, I have said and will continue to say, this card is a great bait and Ogdoadic would be fine without it. They would just need a bit more actual dedicated support, as would other things like Reptilian and Alien. Although Alien doesn't really benefit from this card if you ask me. Something to keep in mind with Snake Rain is that when you run it, it adds +3 to all the monsters you want to see. So, with that Nunu and Naya being at 2, we really have 5, because we have 3 Snake Rain, we have 2 of each. With our Curse and our Alert, we have 1 of each, we have 3 Snake Rain, that makes for 4 copies. The best part of reptiles is their accessibility and their flexibility. Because we have so much searching and so much dumping, we can always find what we want, and we can always make the silver bullet we want to at the levels we can manipulate in our favor. So what does this all mean? In talking about ratios, we can pinpoint what a deck actually costs you in number of slots. So if we run 2 Nunu, 2 Naya, 1 Zoha, 1 Alert, 1 Curse, 1 Serpent Strike, 1 Water Lily, and our 3 Snake Rain, that is actually only 12 cards. That's only 12 slots out of a usual 40. Meaning you have a lot of open room for other engines. That's why I'm able to run Dino with such a generous engine for it. This also lends to the flexibility of Ogdoadics and reptiles in general. Because this archetype is so slim, we have a lot of space for experimentation. With that in mind, I seek to do more experimentation. I've spent a lot of time formulating on my Ogdoadic Dino list, but now I want to move on to other things. I'm finally going to try to mess with something like Alien or maybe just a Cosmic Slicer Zero Turbo kind of build. So, please let me know what you want to see and what you're working on. As for me, that'll be all. I'll see you next week.